At the dinner table, my mother set down the roast chicken and said it like she was asking me to pass the salt. "Molly, this baby isn't yours to keep. Vanessa earned her. You owe this family." I told her no. She slapped me so hard my head snapped sideways and my 8-mon belly hit the edge of the table. I went down on the hardwood my grandfather laid in 1968. My father kept pouring his bourbon. My sister never stood up. I crawled into the powder room, locked the door, and made one call. "I need you here," I said, "with everything you kept." He answered on the second ring. His voice was steady. "I've been waiting 3 years for you to ask." 1 hour later, the same people who told me I owed them my child were the ones begging me to turn the recording off. My name is Molly Bryan, 29 years old. If you've ever been told your pain didn't matter because someone else needed it more, drop a comment and subscribe. The invitation came on a Tuesday. I had not been to a real family dinner at my parents' house in 14 months. The text from my mother was too soft to be a normal invitation. "Sweetheart, your father and I want to host you on Saturday, just the 4 of us. Well, 5 withdrew. It's time we became one family again. Please come. PM. Wear something comfortable." I read it 3 times before I showed it to Owen. He was at the kitchen counter slicing strawberries for our breakfast. 8 months and 1 day into the longest spring of either of our lives. He read it over my shoulder, set down the knife, and asked me one question. "Do you want me to come with you?" I said no. I told him I needed to do this alone. He did not argue. He should have argued. I drove the 12 miles from West Lynn to Lake Oswego that Saturday in the kind of Pacific Northwest April that fools you into thinking the worst weather is behind you. The dashboard clock read 5:53 when I pulled into the driveway. The car seat was already installed in the back of my Subaru. The April rain stopped just as I cut the engine. My mother's rhododendrons were heavy with bloom in the front yard. The wet pink kind she had planted the year I left for college, the ones she was always quick to tell people, had won her a ribbon at the Lake Oswego Garden Club. The front door was open. No one came out to greet me. From inside, I could hear my sister laughing. The dining room had been set with the wedding china. Janelle only used that china for Easter and Christmas and for what she called appointments with grandchildren, the brunch she had thrown for a friend's daughter the summer before when that daughter announced her pregnancy in the same gushing tone Janelle used to announce open houses. 4 place settings around the polished mahogany table. The 5th Drew's was set a little farther down the side as if he had been added at the last minute. "You look glowy, sweetheart," my mother said when I walked in. Sit. Let me get you a glass of..." "Oh, that's right, water." Then I noticed the photograph on the mantel before I noticed the casserole dish. Easter, 2024. The picture was new. In the original, the one I remembered standing for, I had been positioned between my parents. In this version, my face was half-cropped by the edge of the silver frame. Vanessa stood at the center. The frame was new, too, brighter than the others on the mantel. Someone had reordered the wall in the past year. Vanessa stood up and walked toward me with her arms open. Her hug lasted 6 seconds too long. She pressed her stomach against my 8-month belly and whispered, "Too quiet for anyone else to hear. She's going to be beautiful." I did not pull away. I did not say anything. The baby kicked against the inside of my ribs, and I let her. And I sat down at the place my mother had chosen for me, the foot of the table where I had sat at every family dinner since I was 11. My mother carried in a green Pyrex casserole dish. I recognized it the second she set it down. It had belonged to Betrayal Bryan, my mother-in-law. The dish was a square one with white floral edging and a lid that no longer fit quite right after 40 years of use. The recipe inside it, chicken, rice, rosemary, lemon, had belonged to Beatrix's grandmother. My mother had taken the dish home from Beatrix's funeral in March of 2024 and never given it back. The smell that came up from it was so unmistakably Beatrice's that I had to put my hand on my stomach to study myself. My mother settled into her chair at the head of the table. She reached for my father's hand. She looked across the table at me. "We have something to discuss, sweetheart." She said, "As a family, to understand what happened next, you need to understand the house I grew up in. There were 28 photographs on the wall of the hallway that led from the kitchen to my parents' bedroom. I had counted them the first time when I was 8, and again at 12, and again at 16. 23 of those photographs were of my sister, Vanessa. 2 were of me alone. 1 was the 2 of us together. The other 2 were of all 4 of us. Me, Vanessa, my mother, my father, taken on the steps of First United Methodist of Lake Oswego on Easter mornings. My single first grade school portrait hung on the back staircase wall by the door to the basement where guests rarely went. The first time my mother said it out loud, I was 10 years old. She said it standing in the kitchen with her hand on Vanessa's hair, untangling it for piano lessons. "Vanessa is the easy one. You're the one who teaches me patience." I learned later that this was supposed to be a compliment. Vanessa took piano from the age of 6. She gave a recital at 14 at the Newark Theater in downtown Portland. My father booked the front row. My mother bought a dress for the occasion that she still talked about. I wrote stories. I started writing them at 6, the same year Vanessa started piano. At 15, I won a regional writing prize for an essay I had submitted to a contest run by the Oregon Council of Teachers of English. The awards dinner was on a Friday night in May. My mother could not attend. Vanessa had a hair appointment that had to be moved twice. My English teacher drove me, sat next to me, and clapped when they read my name. When I came home that night with the certificate, my mother was on the phone with the salon. She looked up, smiled the way she smiles when an open house has gone well, and said, "Sweetheart, you understand, don't you? Your sister had no one to do her hair." I folded the certificate into the bottom drawer of my nightstand that night. It stayed there for 14 years. My father runs a cosmetic dental practice on an avenue in downtown Lake Oswego, Peton Family Dentistry. The sign on the door has a family portrait in a brass frame. When I was a child, I was in that photograph standing behind a small dental chair, partially obscured. Vanessa stood at the front smiling, her piano recital smile. The portrait was retaken in the spring of 2025, and I was not told. I drove past the office one Saturday in May when I was 3 months pregnant, and I saw the new sign. I was no longer in it. The receptionist had told my father I had moved. I had not moved. I had only stopped picking up his calls in February. My father is not a cruel man. He is a quiet one. The kind of man who, when asked a hard question, will reach for his bourbon and say, "Your mother and I will have to think about that." He had been saying that sentence for 38 years. I had stopped expecting an answer from him by the time I was 14. In 2014, Vanessa was a senior at Loridge High School. She was homecoming queen. She was president of the Spanish Club. She had an internship at a Portland design firm by Christmas. The whole house revolved around her calendar. I was 17 that fall, writing my honors thesis on Toni Morrison, and my mother kept asking me to skip my study sessions because your sister has a thing. The thesis defense was in the second week of May. I gave it to an empty room except for my English teacher and the principal. My sister had a thing. I went to college at Willamette in Salem. Vanessa went to USC. My move-in day was a Tuesday in late August. I rented a U-Haul by myself. I drove the hour south by myself. My roommate's family helped me unload because they pied me. My sister's move into USC was 3 weeks later, and my parents and 3 aunts drove down to Los Angeles. There are photographs of that move-in on the hallway wall. There are no photographs of mine. By the time I was 20, I had stopped expecting anyone in that house to notice me at all. I thought for a long time that this was the worst thing they could do. I was wrong. I met Owen Bryan at Hart Coffee in Northeast Portland in October of 2020. I was 24. He was 26. He knocked over my mug while reading something on his phone, a coffee column of all things by a writer he wanted to imitate, and he spent the next 20 minutes apologizing. "I'm not usually like this," he said. "Actually, I am usually like this. I'm trying to lie. Can I buy you another?" I kept the mug. The handle had chipped where it hit the floor. 6 years later, it still sits on my kitchen windowsill in West Lynn, the one we bought after we got married, the one Iris will see every morning when she wakes up in the room down the hall. On our second date, he told me his mother had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He cried in the booth at the Italian place we went to. I reached across the table and held his hand. That was when I knew I met Conrad and Beatrice Bryan at Thanksgiving in 2021 in their house in Beaverton. Beatrice was in remission then. She had thinned out, but she was lit from inside in the way some women are after they have stared at something and looked away unbroken. Conrad called me ma'am 3 times in the first hour. I asked Beatrice if I could help in the kitchen, and she set me to slicing apples for a pie. She turned away from the stove and looked at me with an expression I would think about for years afterward. "He's been quieter since we got the diagnosis," she said. "He doesn't tell me everything, but you make him talk. Don't ever stop making him talk, will you?" I said I would not. The pie went in the oven. We ate dinner. Conrad said grace in a voice that did not perform. And that was the first time I understood what a pastor sounded like when he was just a man. Beatrice died in March of 2024, 10 months after Owen and I were married. The cancer came back in the autumn of 2023 and took her in 5 months. She was 65. My mother came to the funeral in a white blouse and a cream-colored skirt. She left with Beatrix's casserole dish in a tote bag from Whole Foods, and she did not return it, and she did not mention it, and I did not have the strength then to ask. Owen proposed in December of 2022. We were standing on the boardwalk at Cannon Beach. He had not planned it well. He cried during the proposal. I said yes before he finished the sentence. My mother's first reaction was to ask whether he was well established. Vanessa congratulated me with her arms crossed and her phone in her hand, and she asked me in a tone I would only understand much later. "He's cute, Molly. He's actually really cute. Where did you say you met him?" She kept looking at her phone every 2 minutes through the rest of the engagement brunch. I assumed at the time that her boyfriend, a real estate broker named Spencer she had been seeing for 9 months, was texting her about an argument from the night before. I would learn later that Spencer was not the one she was texting that morning, and that she had in fact already broken up with him that week and not told anyone. 5 months later, the rehearsal dinner. The Allison Inn and Spa sits among the vineyards north of Newberg, Oregon, an hour southwest of Portland. We had booked the rehearsal dinner in a private dining room with a view of the Dundee Hills. 40 guests. Owen was laughing. I was laughing. Vanessa, in a sage green maid of honor dress, had just finished her toast and gotten a standing ovation. She'd been crying in the bathroom for 10 minutes beforehand. I had told her it was sweet of her to be that emotional. The waiter mentioned that we were running low on the Pinot. Owen volunteered to grab some. He knew where the cellar was. The sommelier had given him a tour the day before. He kissed my forehead and stood up. "I'll be right back." The bottle the sommelier had reserved was a 2009 Domaine Drew Hen Oregon Pinot Noir. Owen left the room at PM, Vanessa left the table at D, saying she needed to fix her makeup. She kissed him in the wine cellar. He told me about it the next morning in the parking lot of the hotel at AM, sitting in the passenger seat of the rental car in his pajamas. He could not look at me until I touched his face. He said she had pushed him against the rack, and he had pushed her off. That he had told her never again, that he would have told me the night before, but he could not ruin our wedding day. He was telling me now. He said it was my call. I made my choice in the next 10 minutes. I believed him. I married him at... Vanessa gave a flawless toast at the reception. She danced with Conrad. She kissed Owen on the cheek for the photographer. We left for Big Sue the next morning. What neither of us knew, what no one would know for almost 3 years, was that someone else had been in that corridor outside the cellar too. Someone with a phone in his hand. Someone who had heard a sentence that would not let him sleep either. My mother started by saying, "Grace." She used the long version that she only brought out for funerals and the occasional Easter. "Lord, we thank you for this gathering. We thank you for the chance to right what time has set crooked. We ask you to bless what we are about to discuss and to soften the heart of every daughter at this table. I opened my eyes a second early. Vanessa was watching me, not praying. Her hands were folded so tight her knuckles had gone white. When the prayer ended, my mother began the soft approach. She thanked me for coming. She told me she was proud of me, of who I had become, of the life Owen and I had built. She said I had always been their thoughtful one. She said I felt things deeply, and that was why they were trusting me with this conversation. She touched her left pearl earring once while she said it, and I had been watching her do that since I was 12. It was her tell. It came out when she was about to ask for something she knew she should not. Then Vanessa stood up. She spoke for 3 minutes. She had practiced. She paused for tears at exactly the moments her grief deserved them. She talked about Drew, about how they had been trying since their wedding, about how her body did not work the way mine did, about doctors and verdicts and prayers and Mom. She kept saying, Mom and I, never, Dad and I. She refolded her napkin every time she paused. Drew and I have been trying for almost 2 years, she said. We've spoken to doctors, we've prayed, and when Mom and I sat down, when we really sat down, we kept coming back to this. You have always been the giver in this family, Molly, and we are asking you, your sister and I, for the most extraordinary gift one sister can give another. I caught the math. Drew and Vanessa had been married 18 months. 2 years was a stretch. I said nothing. My mother took over. She used the same calm tone she used when closing on a house. Vanessa would adopt the baby quietly, a private arrangement. No paperwork the public would see. I would be the baby's aunt. The baby would call Vanessa Mom. We've spoken to a friend at the diocesan office. My mother said it can be done in a way that is gentle for everyone. You're young, sweetheart. You have time for more children. Your sister doesn't. I caught that too. The Petons were Methodist. We had been Methodist for 4 generations on my mother's side. Methodists do not have a diocese in office. Vanessa had been talking to a Catholic priest quietly outside our congregation, outside her own marriage. I did not say so. I let my mother think the slip had landed. I asked the question I needed her to confirm. You're asking me to give you my daughter? My mother looked at me without blinking. We're asking you to give your sister a chance to be a mother. I looked at Drew. He had not said a word since the prayer. His face was the color of dishwater. He was staring at the rim of his water glass. He had been built to be in this conversation and then never told what conversation it was. I felt sorry for him before I had finished feeling anything else. I set down my own water glass. I made myself speak slowly so that no one could misharm me. No, the room went still. The answer is no. It will be no tomorrow. It will be no in a year. I came here to share dinner. I'm leaving in 5 minutes. Vanessa, I am sorry that you have not been able to conceive. That is real, and that grief is real, and I will not pretend otherwise. But this baby is mine and Owen's, and she will be mine and Owen's the day she is born and the day after that and every day for the rest of her life. I am not having this conversation again. My father put down his bourbon glass. He looked at my mother. He did not look at me. My mother's face went flat. The polish she had been performing for the last hour slid off it like a damp napkin. You owe this family Molly, she said, and the baby. She was never just yours. She still had her hand on the casserole dish. I started to push back my chair. I have thought about the second before the slap many times since that night. I have thought about how, if I had moved a half second sooner, the whole shape of the next year would have been different. I have come to understand that this is not true. My mother had been waiting 29 years to lift her hand at me the way she did. The exact second was incidental. The hand was already on its way before I refused her. The chair leg dragged on the hardwood. My hand was already on my stomach. Drew started to stand. My mother's hand went up before I had fully cleared the chair. She slapped me with the same hand that had been holding the casserole dish a moment before. Her palm was still warm from it. My head snapped sideways. The next thing I felt was my 8-month belly hitting the polished edge of the table, solid oak, varnished, sharp. As my body twisted, my water glass tipped. The salt cellar rolled. I instinctively pulled my hand to cover my stomach as gravity took me sideways. I went down on the hardwood my grandfather laid in 1968. He had built this house as a wedding gift for my parents. He had measured every plank himself. He had laid each one on his knees. The floor was older than I was. The floor was older than my mother. For a count of 3, I could not feel the baby. I counted 1, 2, 3. She kicked at 4. I let out a breath I had not known I was holding. The bruise on my cheek was already starting to bloom. I could feel it darkening even before I could see it. My back hurt. My left shoulder hurt. The fingerprints my mother had left were already settling into the shape they would keep for 2 full days. No one moved to help me up. My father kept pouring his bourbon. The amber filled the glass. His 4th pour of the evening, and the chandelier above the table caught the surface of it and threw a small honey-cold light onto the tablecloth. He did not look at me. He did not look at my mother. He looked at the bourbon. My sister never stood up. Her hands were folded in her lap. She was the same girl who had cried in the bathroom of the Allison Inn 10 minutes before her own toast. The exact same girl, 3 years older, with the same composure, the same control, the same readiness to wait until someone else moved first. Drew took 1 step toward me. Then he stopped. Then he turned his head and looked at his wife. My mother was still holding the casserole dish in her left hand. Her right hand was at her chest, the way some women put a hand to their chest at the theater when something on the stage had shocked them. Although nothing on the stage had shocked her, she had been the stage. Her voice when she spoke was almost gentle. "Get up. You're making a scene." I did not get up the way she meant. I did not stand. I turned onto my hands and knees on the hardwood I had learned to walk on. I began to crawl. The dining room was 12 feet across to the doorway of the powder room. I made it on my hands and knees, 8 months pregnant, with my hands sometimes leaving the floor to cradle my stomach when she kicked, and the baby kicked twice more before I reached the door. I pulled myself up using the door frame, stepped inside. I closed the door behind me. I turned the lock. I sat down on the closed toilet seat. I looked at my hand expecting blood. There was not any. And that was the second my mother lost me. I had not lost her at age 10 when she called me the patient's teacher. I had not lost her at 15 when she missed the awards dinner for a hair appointment. I had not lost her at 17 when she made me skip my thesis defense for Vanessa's college visit. I had been a stubborn child. I had hoped for a long time. I lost her on the hardwood my grandfather had laid in 1968. The powder room of my parents' house has not changed in 15 years. Guess soap shaped like swans, lavender hand towels from William Soma, a small wooden plaque above the toilet with a Bible verse my mother had hung when I was 11. Honor thy mother. The frame was new. She had replaced it after a clumsy guest had knocked the original off the wall during my engagement brunch, and the new frame was a slightly darker wood than the old one, and the slight mismatch had bothered me for 2 years. I sat on the closed toilet seat and looked at my own hand, expecting blood. There was not any. I looked at my stomach. The baby kicked again. The bruise was starting to throb. I could not yet feel my left shoulder properly. I had 3 numbers I could call. Owen would have come, and Owen would have cried, and Owen would have held me, and Owen would have asked me what I needed, and I would not have known what to tell him. The police would have come, and the police would have been kind, and the police would have asked me whether I wanted to press charges, and the answer to that question was not in me yet. The 3rd number was the only one that came with a man who had been waiting. I scrolled past Owen. I scrolled past 911. I stopped at Pastor Conrad Bryan. He answered on the 2nd ring. "Tell me where you are." "I'm at my parents' house." I said, "I'm in the bathroom. She hit me, Pastor. I need you here with everything you kept." There was a pause on the line long enough that I counted it. He counted 3 breaths before he spoke. When he did, his voice was the same voice he had used to say grace at Thanksgiving in 2021. "Molly," he said, "I have been waiting 3 years for you to ask. I am leaving the house in 5 minutes. Where do you need me? Your house or the hospital?" I had not thought about the hospital yet. The baby had kicked. I had not bled. But Conrad was a pastor who had stood next to a wife dying of cancer, and a pastor who had stood next to other people's children dying of other things. And he knew what I did not yet know about myself. "Providence St. Vincent," I said. 53 minutes, he said, maybe a little less. "Do not tell anyone in that house I'm coming." He hung up. I kept the phone pressed to my ear for 10 seconds after he was gone. The phrase he had used would stay with me with everything you kept. I had not known what I was asking for, only that I had known somehow that he had been keeping something. Owen had told me once in the autumn of 2024 that his father carried a heavy thing about Vanessa. I had not pressed him. I had assumed it was the rehearsal dinner cellar story, which Conrad had presumably learned from Owen at some point. I had not understood then that there were 2 stories and that I only had one of them. I stood up. I looked in the mirror. The bruise on my left cheek had darkened into the shape of a hand. 4 marks, index, middle, ring, pinky. My mother had a long hand. I had not remembered how long. I wiped my face with cold water. The skin underneath was raw. I put a hand on my stomach. The baby was quiet. I unlocked the door. I walked back into the dining room. My mother had not moved. The casserole dish was still in front of her place. Vanessa had taken her seat again. My father was on his 5th bourbon. Drew was on his feet. I walked past them. I picked up my purse from the bench by the front hallway. I opened the door. At the threshold, I turned and I spoke for the last time in that house. "My father-in-law is on his way. You should stay seated." Then I walked out. If you have ever made a phone call from a bathroom floor to a friend, to a brother, to a father-in-law you barely knew, you understand what the next hour cost me. If this story is reaching you, would you stay until the end? I promise you, the second half is the half I needed to tell. Subscribe so you don't miss the part where the truth finally arrives. Dinner was not over. It was just beginning to mean something different. I called Owen from the car on the way to Providence St. Vincent. The drive was 12 miles. I made it in 22 minutes. The April light had gone gray on the Will. The Selwood Bridge was almost empty. Molly, tell me she's moving. She's moving. Owen, listen to me. Meet me at Providence St. Vincent. Drive carefully. Tell me you heard me. Drive carefully." He said yes. I heard the engine of his Honda start. I heard the garage door open behind him. He stayed on the phone for the rest of the drive into the hospital. He did not ask me what had happened. He did not need to. The triage nurse at Providence St. Vincent took one look at the bruise on my face and stopped asking me the standard intake questions. She got me into a room within 7 minutes. She wheeled in a fetal monitor herself. She did not let go of my hand until Owen ran through the door of room 412 at p.m. And even then, she squeezed my fingers twice before she stepped back. The monitor read 138 beats per minute. The baby was fine. The doctor, Dr. Holloway, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain and a steadiness that I would remember for the rest of my life, finished her exam and folded her hands on the clipboard. "You and the baby are fine," she said, "but I am going to keep you here overnight for observation, and I am going to ask you a question I have to ask everyone." "Who hit you?" I told her my mother. Dr. Holloway nodded once. She did not write that part down. She wrote something else. She told me that the hospital would document the bruise in my chart for my own records, that she would offer me resources before I left, and that I did not have to make any decision about police involvement tonight. She put her hand on my forearm before she stood. "Take this hour," she said. "You may need it." She left. Owen had not spoken since he came in. He had not lifted his head from where he was kneeling beside the bed. His forehead was pressed against my stomach. The baby was kicking against his face. He was crying in the way men cry when they have not cried since their mother's funeral, which was the last time he had cried in front of me 2 years before. I let him stay there. I put my hand on the back of his head. I waited. Conrad walked into room 412 at PM 53 minutes after my call, as he had said it would be. He was wearing his clergy collar. He was carrying a brown paper bag. He had not put on his clergy collar to perform a role. He had put it on because he was about to do something that would feel to him like the last sermon he had been waiting to deliver. He set the bag on the rolling table. He took out a phone. It was an iPhone 8, black, cracked on the upper right corner. I had not seen it before. Owen lifted his head and looked at it and did not recognize it either. "This is yours, Dad?" Owen said. Conrad did not look at him. He looked at me. "Molly," he said, "I am going to tell you everything I have known for 3 years, and I am going to tell you why I never told you. And then I am going to ask your forgiveness for the part I played in keeping it quiet." He sat down in the visitor chair beside the bed. He held the phone in both hands. "This phone is from April of 2023. I haven't turned it on since the night before your wedding. I charged it in the car on the way over." He told me what he had seen. He'd gone down to the wine cellar at the Allison Inn at PM looking for Owen, who'd been gone too long. He had walked the staircase quietly. He was a quiet man. He had heard Vanessa before he had seen her. He had heard the kiss. He had heard Owen push her off and tell her never again. He had pulled Vanessa out into the corridor outside the cellar door. He had told her calmly that her sister was upstairs in a wedding dress and that she would not do this again and that he would not be having this conversation with her twice. And then Vanessa had said the sentence he was about to play for me. I held my phone at my side. Conrad said, "I pressed record. I am not proud of doing it. I knew that night that I would not destroy it. I knew that night that I would not show it to anyone unless I was certain it was the only thing that could save you." He opened the camera roll. One video, April 28th, 2023, PM. He pressed play. The recording was 23 seconds long. The image was mostly black. Conrad had been holding the phone at his hip, but the audio was clear. My sister's voice was 3 years younger. She sounded calm. She sounded, in fact, almost reasonable. "I'm going to have everything she has, Pastor. One way or another, even if I have to wait 10 years, you can tell her if you want. She won't believe you. Mom won't believe you. She never does." The recording ended. Owen had gone white. He had not moved. I looked past Conrad at the doorway. My mother was standing there. She was holding a teddy bear and a get well card. She had heard the last 40 seconds. Her hand twitched once toward the rolling table, toward the iPhone, still glowing in Conrad's palm as if she were going to reach for it and take it. Conrad put his hand flat over the phone without looking up. She did not move again. Conrad swiped to voicemail. There were 4. He played them in order. The first was from May 6th, 2023, 1 week after Owen and I had returned from Big Sioux. Vanessa's voice was tight, brisk, controlled. "Pastor Conrad, this is Vanessa. I need to talk to you about Owen. He's making a mistake. Please call me." He had not called her. The second was from December 26th, 2023, the night after Christmas. Her voice was slurred. The timestamp on the message was in the morning. "Pastor, it's Vanessa. She doesn't deserve him. You know it. I know it. You were the one who pulled me out of that cellar. You remember. Good night, Pastor." The third was from September 14th, 2025, 4 weeks before her first wedding anniversary, 6 months after Drew had stopped asking when she would be ready to start a family. "Pastor Conrad, this is Vanessa. Our anniversary is coming up. Drew and I have been trying. It hasn't worked. I think about that cellar more than I should. I shouldn't be telling you this. Don't call me back." The fourth was from February 14th, 2026, Valentine's Day, 2 months and 4 days before the dinner. "Pastor Conrad, this is Vanessa. I know we haven't talked in a while. I want to let you know Molly is pregnant. She told everyone at brunch in October, but I didn't want to call you then. Mom and I have a plan. Please don't get in our way. We've been working on this for months. The baby will be safe. Better than safe. She'll be wanted. Goodbye." The voicemail ended. The fetal monitor beeped. My mother did not move from the doorway. Owen pulled out his own phone. "Molly," he said, "there's one more thing. I should have told you the first one. I told myself I was protecting peace. I see now that I was protecting her." He opened a folder on his phone labeled simply with the letter V. He held the phone out so that I could see the screen. He could not say it aloud. There were 53 messages. The first was dated June 2nd, 2023, 6 weeks after the wedding. "You don't owe her your whole life. We both know it. V." I scrolled. The messages did not arrive in a steady drumbeat. They came in clusters, 6 in the first 6 months, none for 9 months. 12 in a single week in the spring of 2024, when she had supposedly started dating Drew. A photograph of Vanessa at the reception desk of Cascade Wealth Advisors, Owen's downtown office, dated September 11th, 2024. The caption, "I came to bring you coffee. You weren't here." The receptionist said, "You were in Tacoma. I miss you." I looked at Owen. "Were you in Tacoma?" "I was a retreat." I had blocked her number 2 days before that. She used a colleague's iPad to send the message. I scrolled. I read. The last message was dated March 22nd, 2026, 27 days before the dinner. "She doesn't deserve to carry her. I do. V." I let the phone fall to the blanket. My mind went to Vanessa's wedding to Drew, October 12th, 2024. I had been Vanessa's matron of honor that day. I had bought her a sapphire earring set she had pinned on Pinterest a year before. I had let her choose my dress. I had stood up in front of 120 guests and given the kind of toast a sister gives. I had not noticed at the time, but now looking back, I could see it. Drew had styled his hair the way Owen styled his hair. He had worn the same navy tie Owen had worn at our rehearsal dinner. He had stood Owen's height. He worked in finance like Owen. They were not the same man, but Drew was close enough. I looked at Conrad. "You saw this at her wedding." "I did," he said. I did not say anything because I had no proof of anything except a kiss in a cellar and a sentence in a corridor. I had not connected it to Drew until I saw them dance their first dance. I had not connected it to Drew until I watched her cry. The same kind of cry she had cried in the parking lot of the Allison Inn. I have spent 18 months wondering whether I should have said something. I did not. I am sorry. I did not say it was all right. I did not say I forgave him. I was not yet able to do either of those things. But I reached for his hand, and I held it. He held mine back. The understanding settled into me in the next 60 seconds the way a stone settles into water. My sister had not wanted a baby. She had wanted my baby. My sister had not wanted a husband. She had wanted my husband. And when she could not have him, she had built a marriage out of a man who resembled him. And the baby Drew had not been able to give her. The baby she had told the family was the longing of her life. That baby had never been her actual longing. She had wanted the closest thing she could ever have to a child of Owen's. She had wanted mine. Conrad picked up his phone. "There is one more person who needs to be in this room before your mother says a word." He dialed. He put the phone on speaker. It rang twice. Drew answered. "Pastor Conrad." "Drew, it's Pastor Conrad. I need you to come to Providence St. Vincent right now. Room 412. Molly is here. She is all right. I am here. Owen is here. Please come." There was a pause on Drew's end. I could hear traffic in the background. He was driving. He had left the Piton house at PM 20 minutes after I had, without saying goodbye to his wife. He had been driving in circles around the Teletine Hills since Vanessa had texted him 6 times. He had not answered her. "I am 18 minutes away," he said. He hung up. Conrad turned to my mother, who was still standing in the doorway, still holding the bear and the card. Janelle, sit down. There is a chair by the window. You will hear what I have to say to Drew, and then you will speak. Not before. She walked to the chair. She sat with her back straight, her knees together, her hands folded on top of the unopened card. She did not look at me. She did not look at Conrad. She looked at the window. The window looked out on the parking lot. We waited. Owen had not let go of my hand since I had given him the V folder back. He was breathing slowly the way he had taught himself to breathe in the months after his mother's death, when he had started having panic attacks at the office. He was holding himself together for my sake. I could feel it. I let him. 18 minutes passed. The fetal monitor measured them. Drew arrived at p.m. He was still wearing the gray Patagonia vest he had worn at dinner. His hair was Yuan Kai. He stopped at the foot of my bed and looked at me first, and then at the bruise on my cheek, and then back at me. Are you all right? I am, I said. The baby is. Sit down, Drew. There are some things you need to hear. He took the empty chair next to Owen. He did not look at my mother. He looked at the rolling table and at the iPhone 8 on it, and then at Conrad. What is that? Conrad played the video. Then he played the 4 voicemails in order. Then Owen turned his phone screen toward Drew and let him scroll. Drew sat perfectly still for 4 minutes. He did not speak. He did not blink. The clock above the door read, Ika. He read the messages. He came to the photograph from his own office reception desk. He came to the photograph from the morning of his own wedding. The picture he had taken from the hallway of the church, the one he had thought was a candid of his bride looking beautiful. The text bubble visible over his bride's shoulder read, I wish it was you instead. He spoke for the first time at, I took that photo because I thought she looked beautiful. I never read it closely. When I saw the message, I thought she was texting her college roommate. Madison canneled 3 days before the wedding. I assumed Vanessa was telling Madison she missed her. I am telling you now what I should have understood then. I am the only person in that vestibule who did not know. His jaw tightened once on the word only. His voice did not crack. He turned to my mother. He looked at her for a long, slow count of 5. He turned back to Conrad. Where is my wife right now? He did not wait for an answer. He put the phone in his vest pocket. He stood. He walked to the door. He paused for 1 second at the threshold. He did not say goodbye to anyone in that room. Then he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him. The fetal monitor kept beeping. My mother did not look at me yet. She was looking at the rolling table at the iPhone 8. At the phone, she had still not heard play in full. She turned her face toward me at last. She did not stand. She started instead with the soft voice. Molly, sweetheart, I know that sounded. I know how it sounded, but you have to understand your sister was I cut her off without raising my voice. I do not remember now whether I was tired or whether I was something else. Mom, the night before my wedding, in the parking lot of the Allison Inn, Vanessa was crying in your car. You said 1 sentence to her. Repeat it for me now. Her left hand went up to her pearl earring. Touch 2. Conrad answered for her. She said, It should have been you, sweetheart. You saw him first. I was walking back to my own car. I had the windows of Beatrix's car cracked because of the heat. I heard you, Janelle. I heard every word. I have heard it every night for 3 years. My mother did not deny it. She did not look at Conrad. She looked at her own hands. You knew, I said. You knew the night before my wedding, and you let me marry him anyway, not to protect me, to buy time. She did not answer. Owen pulled out his phone. He called my father. He put it on speaker. Theodore, it's Owen. I am putting you on speaker. Pastor Conrad is going to tell you what we have been listening to for the past 2 hours. Then I am going to ask you one question. My father had not moved from the dining room. I could hear it in the background. The chair against the floor, the bourbon glass against the wood, Vanessa's voice somewhere off stage saying something too low for any of us to catch. Or no, Vanessa was not there anymore. She had left. The voice belonged to someone on the television my father had turned on after I'd walked out. Conrad summarized. He read the dates. He summarized the messages. He told my father about the photograph from the wedding morning. He did it the way a pastor delivers bad news at a hospital bedside, which was the form he knew best. My father did not interrupt. When Conrad finished, Owen asked, "Theodore, did you know any of this?" There was a 5-second pause on the line. "I knew about the cellar," my father said. "Janelle told me a month after the wedding. I told her to leave it alone. I told her Molly didn't need to know. I am the reason Conrad was alone in carrying this. I have been a coward, Owen. I have been a coward for your whole life." His voice broke on the word coward. It broke twice. "Janelle," he said, "I'll be at the Heathman Hotel tonight. I won't be home tomorrow. I'll send for my things on Monday. I am sorry, Molly. I am 29 years too late." The line went dead. My mother had not moved. The teddy bear had fallen off her lap. The card had stayed in her hand. She looked at the iPhone 8 on the rolling table, at the 4 voicemails still listed on its screen, at the 23-second video, and something behind her eyes broke loose. She stood. She lunged. 3 quick steps. She came at the rolling table at the phone. Her hand reached for it. Owen was already on his feet. He stepped between her and the table before she could close the last 2 feet. He did not raise his voice. He did not touch her. He just stood there. The doorway behind her opened. Vanessa had come. She was crying. Her mascara had run in 2 streaks. She must have driven from Lake Oswego in the half hour we had been waiting. She must have heard from my mother by text. She must have run from the parking lot to the elevator to the 4th floor without stopping. She stood in the doorway with her hands pressed against the doorframe on either side of her head, the way a child does when she has been called inside from a game she had been losing. She said the only word she would say in that hospital room: "Turn it off. Please turn it off." I did not turn it off. I did not say anything. I did not need to. She slid down the doorframe to the floor of room 412. She sat there. She did not cover her face. My mother stood very still by the rolling table. She had not gotten her hand to the phone. She would not now. I spoke for the last time that night. "Mom, Vanessa, go home. Not to my house. To wherever you live now. Don't call me again. Don't show up at my house. If you come to the hospital when she is born, I will have you removed. I will not say goodbye to you because that would imply I want one. Goodbye, Mom." My mother walked out. Vanessa stayed on the floor for another minute. Then she got up and she followed. The card stayed on the chair. The teddy bear stayed on the floor. The casserole dish stayed in the dining room of a house I would never enter again. Drew filed for divorce on the 4th of May. He did not contest a single asset. He took only what he had brought into the marriage. He did not see Vanessa again. He has not seen her that I am aware of since. My father moved into the Heathman Hotel that night and stayed for 9 days. After that, he moved into a furnished apartment in the Pearl District, number 311. He called me 3 times the first week. He left a voicemail each time. I did not return them. I did not delete them. I keep them in a folder on my phone now. I am keeping them for Iris so that one day, if she asks, I will be able to show her what an apology that arrives too late sounds like. He returned Beatrix casserole dish on the 2nd Saturday of May. He drove to West Lynn alone. He did not knock. He left the dish on our front porch in a brown cardboard box with a folded note on top. The note said, "This was never ours." I washed the dish and I packed it carefully in a different box, and I drove it to Beaverton and I gave it back to Conrad. He had not known where it had gone. He set it on the counter where it had lived for 40 years. He stood in front of it for a long time. He did not say anything. He did not need to. Conrad wrote Owen a letter on the 8th of May. 3 pages handwritten in blue ink on the heavy stationery Beatrice had used for the parishioners she wrote to in their last months. He gave it to Owen at lunch at a place on Northwest 23rd Avenue we had been going to since we were dating. Owen read it aloud at the table. The waiter, when he saw what was happening, pretended he could not see us. Conrad cried. Owen cried. I held both of their hands, 2 sentences from that letter. I will remember as long as I live. I told myself I was waiting for the right moment. The moment did not come. It had to be made. Molly made it. I followed her into the room she had already entered. That is not courage. That is loyalty. There is a difference. Forgive me for not knowing the difference until now. Owen folded the letter. He put it in his jacket pocket. He told his father he would read it to her when she was old enough to ask. The nursery was finished on the 18th of May. Soft cream walls, a single rocking chair Conrad had refinished himself. Maple with a cream cushion, Beatrice's sister had sewn in Sacramento. The chair had been Beatrix's. She had rocked Owen in it. I sat in it for the first time on the evening of the 20th. The baby kicked hard enough that I felt her against the wood. The frame for my high school writing prize, the one that had stayed folded in a drawer for 14 years, finally hung on the wall above the changing table. I had bought the frame the week before at a small shop on Mississippi Avenue. Owen had hung it without my asking. If you are still here, thank you. The next few minutes are quieter than what came before. They are the minutes I almost did not write. If you have a story like mine, a family you had to walk away from to become yourself, share it in the comments. I will read it. Someone else who needs it will read it too. That is why this channel exists. My water broke on the evening of the 24th of May at 6:06. Owen drove me to Providence, St. Vincent. Dr. Holloway was on call. She delivered Iris Beatrix Bryan at 11:08 that evening. 5 pounds, 14 ounces, 8 months and 1 week, late preterm, pink, breathing on her own, crying the way babies cry when they have decided to keep being here. Owen caught her. He cut the cord. He held her against his chest while they cleaned her. Then he walked her out into the hallway where Conrad was sitting in a plastic chair with his hands on his knees, and he laid her in his father's arms. Dad, this is your granddaughter. Conrad cried in a way I had not seen him cry. Not at Beatrix's diagnosis, not at her funeral, not at any moment in the 4 years I had known him. He whispered something to her I did not ask about. I did not need to know. He told me later, much later, that he had whispered his wife's name. I posted one photograph on the 27th of May, a private account. 31 followers, all chosen, a tiny foot, a cream blanket, no face. The caption read, Iris Beatrix Bryan, May 24th, 2026. She knows the people who waited for her. The rest are not invited. My mother saw the post. I know she saw it because Conrad told me. And Conrad knew because his sister in Sacramento got a phone call the same afternoon from a number Janelle had used to call Beatrice when Beatrice was dying. Conrad's sister did not answer. My mother has not called me since. My father called on the Sunday after we came home. He left another voicemail. I did not answer it. I did not delete it. Vanessa has not contacted me directly. She sent me an 11-page letter that arrived in the mail 2 days after the birth, which Owen brought home from the post office and laid on the kitchen island in front of me. I did not open it. I burned it in the fireplace that night. Owen sat with me. We did not speak while it burned. If you have ever been told your pain did not matter because someone else needed it more, I want you to hear me when I say this. Iris will grow up knowing my mother's name, but she will not grow up calling her grandmother. That distinction took me 29 years to earn. I am not letting anyone take it from me again. Some families are not your family. They are only the place you came from, the family you build, the one that waits in a hallway with their hands on their knees, the one that drives over with a phone older than your marriage, the one that catches your daughter and lays her in her grandfather's arms. That family is the one that counts. She is 1 week old today. She is sleeping in my arms while I am telling you this. The sun is coming up over the Willow Valley outside the nursery window. She has Owen's hands. She has Beatrix's eyes. The casserole dish sits on Conrad's counter again, where it always should have been. I had to fall on a floor my grandfather laid in 1968 to find her. I would do it again.